Welcome to the STR Data Lab.
Hello and welcome to the STR Data Lab. I'm Jamie Lane, Chief Economist at AirDNA, and I have today another exciting guest. We have Will Risbourg. He is the owner of Two Casitas, property management vacation rental company in Santa Fe. Will, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate getting introduced to y'all recently. We didn't see any of this coming, and we're thrilled to be part of the AirDNA community.
Yeah. So you guys were honored in our top property managers ranking this year. Overall, you guys ended up as number 5. And I think we're top on cleanliness. So you guys are obviously doing something right. What I'm really interested in is what are you guys doing and how are you doing it? Because I'm sitting at over 100 listings and be able to maintain a 4.93 rating with thousands of reviews is unbelievable. So first, congratulations. And then second, maybe you could give me a little bit of background of you and your company.
Sure. So I guess I'll start with the background, and because it's sort of explanatory about the rest of it. We have been around since 1998. It's a family business. My mom started it. We when my parents split up, we had a house sort of around downtown Santa Fe that had 2 guest houses. And so those were the original Two Casitas. And I believe, I'm not 100% certain about this, but I believe we were the first people in New Mexico, at least, to rent short-term rentals online.
Okay.
So we have a long-standing legacy of doing this and a lot of practice doing this. And we, did it for almost 15 years before we partnered with Airbnb and before Airbnb sort of blew up. So, we had a lot of practice getting our customer service sea legs, so to speak, before before all this got going. And started with those 2 little houses, started managing a couple more. I was pretty young at this time, but I grew up in and around the business. I started working just as a reservationist in 2014, early 2014. And, I've always had a sort of natural inclination towards customer service. And I think that I understood I'd worked in retail, in coffee shops and art galleries, things like that. So I just sort of knew, some general principles around how to treat customers. So that positioned us well when Airbnb came along to really focus on the guest experience and on the quality of reviews and understanding where you have to give in order to maintain those reviews. Sometimes, taking a short-term loss that you might feel is unfair, like giving a refund that's bigger than you want, in order with the understanding that a good review or a lack of a bad review will, benefit you more moving forward, and, sort of taking the big picture on that. And, we, being a family business, we generally take pride in trying to offer, a quality product. We take on only houses that we're proud of managing and that we think will sell Santa Fe as an experience to people who haven't been there before, which most of our guests are first-time travelers. And it's a really unique part of the country that we love to share with people who haven't been here yet, because oftentimes you land in Santa Fe. You were recently there, you told me, in the green room, and it kind of feels like you're going to a different country altogether. It's a totally different landscape. The architecture is pretty unique. The food is pretty different. And so it really does transport you to a different time and place. And we feel that it's a special thing to share. And we want to make sure that our properties facilitate that experience. So, yeah, I think, that's sort of the broad strokes of it.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful area of the country. And I feel like it gets a surprising number of tourists for where it's located. But the proximity of the mountains being right there, and that sort of whole area and seems pretty special, and sort of a history within the United States too. It's not just a pretty place to go, but there's a lot of sort of history within and sort of the United States and sort of and what Santa Fe sort of meant and to sort of the expansion out west?
The tri-cultural influences are sort of what people talk about. There's the sort of white Anglo culture that's ubiquitous throughout the States. There's a heavy native culture, and then there's the Spanish culture, and they all intersected in New Mexico. And that's what created our unique aesthetic, our unique food, and it really permeates everything about the city. It's a blend of all three of those interests, and it's really exciting to see, because it's not, demographically there's different subsets of people that exist there, and it's not a perfectly even split, but there's representation from all three influences everywhere throughout the city, and it's a really interesting melting pot in that way.
So are the Two Casitas still the original one, still part of the portfolio?
They're not, unfortunately. I think we stopped managing those in 2019. The house got sold multiple times, and the most recent owner didn't end up working out. But yeah, we managed them for I think 21 years. They stayed in the inventory.
Wow. So maybe, and sort of, I want to get into sort of your operation excellence, but maybe we could just start with how you guys went from sort of the original two to where you're at now. Like, I can imagine, and it hasn't been sort of a straight shot up in terms of sort of growing the company. And we all sort of dealt with COVID and sort of the impacts that happened. So, and what's the sort of history of and sort of the expansion that you guys have seen?
Sure. So before I joined in 2014, it was all essentially just word of mouth. This started out sort of as an idea from a realtor friend who sort of suggested that, we had the Two Casitas that helped pay for the mortgage. She's like, well, you could do this for other people, get a broker. So we started getting some referrals through her. And by the time I started, I think we were at 40 some properties. And other people doing this in Santa Fe, it really was sort of an offshoot of their real estate businesses. And so they were more focused on that side of things. And we started, like I said, with more of a direct passion about customer service and guest experience. And we were really focused entirely on short-term rentals, as opposed to having, short-term rentals being sort of a side feature of our real estate business. So because of that, by the time I joined, we were really focused on quality reviews. We were focused on getting our SEO in good shape, our Google reviews in good shape, as well as what's on the OTAs. And that sort of naturally showed that we were, excelling in guest experience at Two Casitas compared to our competition. And that just sort of naturally brought people to us. It is a relatively small market. We only have a few competitors. And, so we were very fortunate to get a lot of organic growth from that. Around a little bit after I started, we hired someone who was specializing in new home onboarding, and that allowed us to really accelerate that process. We grew to around 100 properties. I think we were at 90 something right before COVID. And then we kind of stalled things. I think we went down, and then, the post-COVID boom, we grew again. We're going to talk about cleaning to some degree, but we always made sure that our growth was compatible with the capacity of our cleaning company. We're really tightly partnered with them, and we've always worked with the same cleaning company since day one, so they're very loyal, and we always make sure that any growth that we have in our business is something that they can take on, because they're a huge part of our standards and our quality assurance. But yeah, most of our growth has genuinely been organic. We really care about providing a good guest experience, which gets good reviews, which attracts new homeowners. And it's sort of a vicious cycle in that way. Yeah, it's fairly simple, but it just requires dedication over a long period of time to some core principles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at, and your growth, it does seem pretty steady over the past sort of few years, and sort of just over that sort of 100 listing mark that you guys have sort of progressed to. And given sort of the market you're in, and the sort of and operational efficiencies you've sort of realized, like, is this, do you think, the sort of largest you think you could be in this market? And do you think you could scale it more? Do you see opportunities in other markets? Like, where do you see the sort of company going in terms of scale?
Sure. Yeah, I think we have room to grow. Right now, we control about 10% of the total STR market.
Yeah.
Vast majority of that is just individual owner operators. We think we'd be happy to take on a bunch of those if they're ready and willing. And then there's a couple of other professional property managers. There's one that's approximately half our size, and then a bunch of smaller boutique ones that do 10 or 15 listings. So we think we have room to grow. A lot of that, frankly, is out of our hands. It's sort of a supply and demand situation. There is 1,000 permit cap in Santa Fe, so we can only really, that would theoretically be the maximum, and I don't think we'll want to be a total monopoly there. But I could see us being at 200, 250 listings at some point. Again, it depends on the capacity for our cleaning crew. Like there was a period where we were really capped at 100 because our cleaning crew just was having trouble hiring and couldn't expand beyond that. I think at this point we could probably get up to 120 or something without worrying too much about that. But yeah, I think we have room to grow. As far as other markets, it kind of scares me to some degree because I think Santa Fe is sort of a Goldilocks market for this industry to some degree. We have the great relationship with our cleaning crew, but not only them, but a bunch of other vendors in town that would be difficult to replicate in other markets.
Yep.
But also Santa Fe is geographically small, not a lot of driving to get between the rentals. And it is an incredible tourism market broadly. Our clientele skews retired, it skews wealthy. So we get good nightly rates and people who are not quite as affected by economic ups and downs. We found that, we're affected by things like COVID, Great Recession back in '08, et cetera. They obviously make a difference. But because of the demographics that we cater to, those differences are smaller than in other markets. When the entire country goes down significantly, 50%, we might go down 10 to 15, just because of the nature of our clientele. So there's something really special about how Santa Fe works in all degrees when it comes to short-term rentals. Really, the only downsides are just the properties themselves are older. The construction methods in Santa Fe are not as tightly regulated as other parts of the country. So like we have to do a lot of maintenance on the properties. It can be a little bit difficult dealing with the city permitting, historic review, and things like that. But for the most part, I think Santa Fe is just an incredibly special place to be able to do this. And I attribute a lot of our success just to that environment. So I'd be open to starting, Two Casitas 2.0 in, Austin or something or some other market. But I would be hard pressed to find a place better than Santa Fe to do this. So I'd be choosy about it.
Yeah. So, and one of the things I wanted to dig into in addition to sort of and the sort of top cleaning marks, is just your ability to drive sort of 5-star reviews. Because I've talked with a lot of people over the years on like how they do it, and it's usually because there's kind of focus. It's just not by chance that you get that many 5-star reviews, that you get this many people sort of writing and publicly and so nice about all those stays. Yeah. So what do you see as sort of your magic on how you're able to achieve this level of success on guest satisfaction?
I don't think there's a great secret to it. It's really just actively communicating with every guest. We use Breezeway right now to text with every guest and sort of take the temperature of how they're feeling about their stay. We're not too heavy-handed with communications, but we make sure that the lines are open so that if there's any problems, we can either resolve them during the stay or anticipate maybe a bad review is coming, or if they have any specific needs that we can take care of ahead of time to sort of boost their experience. It's really just about keeping the lines of communications free and open, and understanding what your guests want and need and what they're disappointed by so that you can resolve it as quickly as possible. And then, like I said earlier, when you have, a situation where a guest is unsatisfied, a lot of times there's a lot of hemming and hawing that I see when I talk to other industry professionals about like, oh, I don't want to give them, I don't want to give them $200. I want to give them $50 because that's what I feel like this problem is worth. And you kind of have to let go of a lot of those preconceived notions. At the end of the day, things like refunds are emotional conversations. There's not a exact dollar value that can be tied to the quality of an experience. And you kind of have to let the guest lead that conversation. And they'll often be grateful for you not fighting with them. We try not to fight with our guests a lot. And if you demonstrate that you're a rational and fair and considerate actor, you'd be shocked at what kind of situations you can turn around. And then people that don't have problems, they just appreciate that we're proactive, that we've thought about the experience that we're providing ahead of time, and that it's not just an empty house that isn't cared for. We really care about maintaining all of our amenities to the highest standards and making sure that everything is functioning in the house to the best of our ability, and that it's a warm and welcoming environment. We make sure the lights are turned on, the heat and AC are running before they arrive, etc. It just makes sure that it's a welcoming experience for them.
No, that all makes sense. And on the cleaning side, you sort of mentioned the company that you have a relationship with. Is that a wholly separate company?
Yes, though we're their primary contract. They do some work for other companies, but we've been working with them for 20 plus years. They're a huge secret to our success. I mean, they do an incredible job. Estela is the owner of Estela's Cleaning Services, and she has incredibly high standards. She's really experienced. She knows what is specifically needed for this industry. She's not just a generic house cleaner. She knows about the scheduling and the billing and the needs that the homeowners have versus what the guests need. And really, the houses are immaculate when she's done with them every single time. And she's never late, very rarely misses a clean. She's incredibly professional. And if you could find someone like that who is willing to scale with you, like Estela has been, hold on to them for dear life, because we couldn't do it without Estela. We've tried some other cleaning companies for a couple of houses, just sort of as a backup option. And yeah, she's really special.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Like when you sort of talk with companies that have sort of scaled property management, they sort of, and get back to it's really hard to scale if you don't have local ownership. And this almost takes it to the extreme of like, and there's not only local ownership in you of the property management company, there's also local ownership of the cleaning aspect of that property management, and where they own every aspect of that, and make sure that it's sort of meets the sort of qualities I needed. How much, as the owner of the company, do you see that as a risk of, if they went away, and your ability to continue to operate? Because, and if I talked with other property managers, like, oh yeah, like that's probably maybe why we don't do it, is because we can't like wake up and have the company that we rely on sort of disappear overnight, and that would just cause too much risk to us.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a huge problem if Estella went away. Thankfully, we've been working with her for such a long time. We've had a lot of conversations about, her retirement and her sort of succession plan and everything like that. So it's we're doing everything we can to ensure that the partnership is long lasting. To be totally frank, there's a level of codependence between our two companies. Like I said, we're her, biggest client, her major source of income. So she needs us just as much as we need her. And it's mutually beneficial. And we do everything that we can to nurture and preserve that relationship. And again, like it's the same conversation as we have with the refunds. It's, sometimes you have to give a little bit on certain things in order to serve the greater good of both companies. There's a lot of compromise involved in these kinds of relationships, but that's how it should be. And I think that, there can be a healthy kind of codependent business relationship that you can foster that will make sure that you're both as secure as possible. But yeah, just ensuring that Estella has a good succession plan. And even if she doesn't, and we have to switch companies for one reason or another, we have worked with her so long that we know what her standards are, so that we can hold another company to them and try and pass on as much of that knowledge as possible. We also try and, assist with certain operations like linen storage and scheduling as much as possible, so that our workflow is sort of intertwined. That would also make it easier to switch to another company to some degree. and it just ensures that we're all in sync and working together. Um, we work incredibly closely. She's not really, none of her workers are employees. She's not an employee, but we treat each other sort of as if that's the relationship. We work
Yeah.
incredibly closely.
No, that makes sense. It seems like an amazing sort of partnership that you guys have that ultimately ends up and best for the guests. And the sort of and talking with other property managers and some of the um and struggle around sort of maintaining that consistency is sort of the costs associated with it of
Yeah.
yeah, everyone would love to have 5-star reviews, but there's a real operational cost to sort of getting there. So how do you sort of think about maybe the profitability of a 5-star review? Is that a question you guys talk about, or is it more like, yeah, the fact that we're getting the 5-star reviews mean we're profitable and mean we're able to continue to grow and sort of invest into ourselves? And it seems like if you start getting those lower review scores, it can mean less bookings, less retention on ownership with your owners. It could be almost a death spiral the other way. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's totally a feedback loop. Exactly. And, we're able to use our good review score to justify our high cleaning fees and justify our rental rates, et cetera. And it feeds back on itself. And thankfully we're in the right part of the feedback loop. And, if it got interrupted, I'm not sure exactly what we would do, but, that's why we're so focused on maintaining that quality, because at the end of the day, it's the quality of the product is what matters. And, Estela ensures that our quality is top notch. Once the selection of the home is over, she's really the person who's presenting the home to people. And it's just priority number one. There's no shortcuts to having a great cleaning staff. There's you have to have people who are actually good at it and actually reliable. And I've seen people try and cobble together multiple cleaning companies and hire employees at the same time. And, it's possible, but I think that we're really fortunate to have the relationship that we do, and it really has to be priority number one. I can't imagine us having the review scores that we do, not only for cleanliness but overall, because I think the cleanliness sets the tone for the entire stay. If we didn't think of cleaning first, like I said, we've halted the growth of our company when we've turned down amazing properties because our cleaning staff wasn't ready to take on that inventory. So it has to be your absolute first priority, I think.
yeah. And how else do you guys sort of think about sort of efficiencies and sort of automation? I feel like it's sort of top of mind for a lot of operators today of wanting to automate more and more of their business. And obviously cleaning is hard to almost impossible today. Maybe once Elon has the sort of army of robots coming for us, we could think about automating cleaning, but right now and there's a lot of manual aspects to the business, but also more and more that are able to get automated. So what's your guys' approach on that?
Yeah, I mean, we use Breezeway. That's a huge part of it. It's it's a great scheduling tool. There's a lot of competitors out there like Operto and whatever. There's a lot of work order programs that are great for that kind of thing. But that mostly helps with scheduling. And on top of our cleaning crew, we have an internal inspection crew that goes in and checks the individual amenities of the property, cleans the outdoor space, and does everything other than cleaning, essentially. And we have a really rigorous checklist that they have to go through in between every reservation to ensure that the TV is working, the AC is working, the hot water is working, the internet is functioning properly, the signage is in good shape, there aren't any cracks in the wall, damaged furniture, et cetera. It's a pretty long, exhaustive checklist that we go through. And that's all automated through Breezeway. And we have reports that come back to what we call our Casita care team that ensures that all of those issues get followed up on. And so honestly, there's not a ton of automation in what we do right now, other than our pricing is automated. A lot of our the way our tech stack talks to each other. We use a lot of different software, and all of that is somewhat automated. But even our scheduling, while like all those check-ins and cleans get created, they still have to be manually scheduled. There's a lot of thought that has to go into that, whether you're scheduling by neighborhood or by by type of property or whatever. So yeah, I think that there can be some automation that's put in place with guest communication. AI is getting pretty good at doing the chatbot stuff and responding to FAQs, et cetera. And we use a little bit of that, but honestly, I don't think a lot of that stuff is ready. Like, like you said, with cleaning, once we get, humanoid robots that can handle it for us, that's a totally different story. Who knows how far away that is?
Yeah.
And even with the with something like a chatbot, with when you're communicating with guests, the chatbot only knows what information you can feed into it. It's never going to visit the property and be able to answer specific things about the location of the powder room in a house or whatever. It's and guests often have really, really specific questions that, again, maybe if there's a cleaning robot that's walking through the property and can create a 3D map of it and then can sync that information with your chatbot sometime in the future, like then you might be able to provide a more automated kind of customer service experience. But at this point, humans are still winning in that regard.
So for those that have listened to the episode, it would seem like things are firing on all cylinders. Like things are going pretty well. Like, what are the sort of biggest challenges that you guys have in your business? And are there any sort of concerns? Are there any things that you wish were running better? Like, what are the challenges today?
Well, like I said earlier, with the construction methods in Santa Fe, the homes are not, and just the nature of the travel industry, there's a lot of wear and tear on these properties. And, none of us are, maintenance professionals. We work with a lot of maintenance professionals, but it's always a challenge to keep the properties in tip-top shape, mechanically and structurally. That's something that I don't really know what there could be a solution to until we scale to the point where we could afford to have an on-staff plumber and an on-staff electrician. That would be a big game changer. There is a bit of an issue in Santa Fe with people. The local population isn't particularly thrilled with the short-term rental industry. So we have some political fights on our hand that are, I think we've kind of reached an equilibrium there for the time being. We have, pretty good regulations in Santa Fe that, like I said, there's a permit cap and a lot of rules about which properties can and can't be short-term rentals. But it's sort of a persistent push and pull with the community and public relations and everything like that. So that's a big challenge. And then, the post-COVID economic environment has been difficult. We had obviously this huge boom, or whenever all the stimulus money was flying around, and a lot of our homeowners that as bookings are coming in, people are also buying properties and putting them into our program because everything's just looking great. And then things slow down the next couple of years, and suddenly those homeowners' expectations aren't being met. So it's like, okay, what new marketing initiatives can we do to drive things back to, as close to that post-COVID economy as possible? So that's definitely a challenge, is sort of maintaining that the demand that we've had in peak areas. We're looking into some new marketing initiatives right now that we hope will sort of get us at least partway there. But it's all sort of in the baby stages. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, it does look pretty common. And looking at the occupancy in Santa Fe, it really boomed in 2021 through 2022, and then it sort of came back down. It's not all the way down to 2018, 2019 levels, but you're definitely, and if you looked at just the past 3-4 years, you'd be like, oh, things aren't great. They've been better. Yeah.
But they're fine too. And like I said,
Yeah.
A lot of other markets are doing a lot worse than we are. So I'm grateful that we've been able to hold on to what we can. And I'm also really grateful we use beyond pricing for our pricing. And that has really helped us weather these economic ups and downs, because we get a lot of data about how our properties are renting, and we adjust quickly on the fly. I adjust the pricing for every home every week, usually on Tuesdays, and make sure that it's in line with demand, and so that we're maximizing revenue. So that's a huge part of it too. And yeah, it's one thing about Santa Fe that is a downside. The nickname that locals give Santa Fe is the land of mañana, meaning land of tomorrow. There's a lot of sort of a procrastination culture in Santa Fe. It's difficult to get people to be really reliable workers, and especially when people are independent contractors, plumbers, et cetera, getting them to show up when you have an urgent issue can be tough. So that's a challenge that, again, like if we grow to the point where we can get more on-staff professionals, I think that would make a huge difference in elevating the services we can provide.
Yeah. Well, and from the issues that I talked to a lot of people, like a lot of yours seem solvable and they're not sort of existential. And you guys have, and most of the operational challenges, it seems like I nailed down. And it's like, also like you guys are huge in your market, but you've done it very sustainably in terms of your growth, where I'm so many I talked to hit 100. They're like, our processes worked at 20 and everything broke at 100.
Yeah. And to me, it's like 1 through 10 is one business. 10 through 50 is another business, which is fairly similar to 1 through 10, but there are differences. And then like 50 through, 75 or so is kind of another phase. And then once you get like 80 and above, there's just so much stuff that you can get used to doing manually that you have to, automate. Like, for example, I mean, this is a long time ago. It's probably not relevant to most people these days, but like when I started, we had 40 properties. We could manually update our rates on all the OTAs, right? And that's just something that you cannot do once you scale. So you start having to have more and more technological solutions that you need to implement and that you need to lean on. And also, a lot of people just get really excited about revenue growth and forget that you have to grow your infrastructure first. Like I said, like ensuring that you have the cleaning capacity before you're taking on new homes is crucial. Or if you're taking on new homes and you don't have more cleaning capacity, you have to be ready to let go of other homes in exchange. It can feel like you're missing out on an opportunity by, denying new properties coming on board when you have that demand. But if you're not ready for them and you don't feel like you can provide 100% of the service that your customers and your homeowners are accustomed to, you can't do it. You just can't. Like because then you will end up in that death spiral of, you'll list a new property, you'll get a bunch of bad reviews right off the bat, and the property never really recovers. It's really difficult. So you have to make sure that you're ready to provide that 5-star experience from the first booking.
So you've been through on this journey, and last question I sort of have for you, as we sort of wrap this up, like a lot of our listeners sort of sit in the like 1 to 10 listing camp. They're sort of starting on their journey and they've bought a few, maybe they're co-hosting a few, but they're maybe thinking about what it takes to start scaling. So going from that 1 to 10 company to a 10 to 50 or 50 plus. Is there any advice that you'd have for people over and above like what you just said around being ready to scale? But like, what would you sort of and tell people as they sort of think about taking on this sort of next level of growth?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, like, I wasn't super involved in the business at that time for Two Casitas, and it was also just a completely different world back then. So I don't have a lot of direct knowledge about it, but generally, you can set yourself apart by just providing the best services in your market. If you really care about the quality of your guest stay and the quality of your homeowner's experience in entrusting their property to you, and you put yourself in your guest shoes, you put yourself in your homeowner's shoes and make sure that you're doing something that is living up to your standards as a consumer. And as if you're a homeowner as well, not a lot of property managers take that approach. You'd be surprised. A lot of people just sort of try and do the bare minimum. And if you really put your heart into making sure that you're providing a great product, the business will come to you. And you just have to think of that first. You can't just grow because you want to grow. You have to grow because you've earned it by doing a good job at what you're doing and doing a better job than anyone else in your market. And I think that's been our secret to success. We just really try to provide a great guest experience and a great homeowner experience. And, we've been fortunate enough by doing that. We haven't had to put a lot of, we've sent out a couple of mailers here and there, but for the most part, our owners come to us. We don't do a lot of outreach because we try and let our guest experience speak for itself. And I think it does.
Well, it's been a pleasure sort of hearing your story, hearing about how you guys do it. Wish you guys all the best. And thanks for joining the podcast.
Thank you guys so much for the acknowledgement and for having me. I like I said, I didn't see this coming. I always knew that we were pretty good at what we did in our local market. And I talked to our Airbnb rep and she always said that we're doing great, but I had no idea that we were like nationally ranked on anything. So it was a wonderful surprise. And I appreciate it. And obviously I appreciate what you guys do because a lot of our homeowners, before they even speak to us, are in a relationship with AirDNA already. So thank you for doing what you do and making this industry more understandable because it's difficult to understand. It's not a typical industry in a lot of ways. So
awesome. All right. Great. Thanks, Will.
Thanks, man. Take care.